Well, hello, welcome. And for anyone joining for the first time, my name's Dennis Fansett. I'm a giving ministry advisor with the Diocese of Newcastle. And it's so good to have you join us for this, the fourth talk in our series through Generosity Week. Now, I don't know what you would consider makes someone your friend. I mean, a real friend, not just a Facebook like or similar, someone you can go to with stuff. If you're struggling or hurting or in need of support, someone who will be there for you, someone who will listen, someone you can trust, who's been there for you before and has proved faithful and reliable, and you're confident that you can turn to them yet again should the need arise. And someone who you would be there for them too if they were to ask you to do something for them or some small thing like that. You see, it's one thing to have superficial friends, people who follow our posts about how nice our holiday was or how well our kids are doing and all the things which are going well in life. But I think what turns a person into a real friend is when we share things together, go through crises together, support each other and have common experiences. That's what moves something on from a superficial relationship into a friendship, as you learn to trust someone and, more importantly, learn through experience that they can be trusted. Now, interestingly, I think it's the same with God. Our relationship with him deepens as we start stepping out into the unknown, trusting him or holding on to him through difficult times we might be experiencing. We begin to learn, not just academically, but deep in our heart, that he can be trusted. He is a true friend. Now, when I was a kid, a long time ago now, my church youth group used to sing a song, and I'm sure no one's heard of it because it's going to be so old, it's well out of date. But the line went, "He owns the cattle on 1,000 hills, the wealth in every mine." And the point the chorus is trying to make is that God already owns everything in the world. He made it and it's his. But if God is so powerful, so resourceful, if he has all this wealth to start off with, indeed, if all the money and wealth and precious metals are his anyway, then why on earth does he need money from us? He's clearly not short of a bob or two. Indeed, he isn't. So why then should we give to God if God already has everything he could possibly need? Let me offer you two reasons. Firstly, I think because God prefers to work through us to bring about his purposes. We see this so clearly in the Bible. Perhaps my favourite example is the book of Ruth. Boaz prays that the Lord would provide for Ruth, but then he provides for her himself. Then he prays that the Lord would protect her, but then actually Boaz instructs his own men not to harm her, and he tells Ruth that she can stay with his team, his employees, to make sure that she's safe. He comments that she has come to take refuge under the wings of the God of Israel, but actually he gives her refuge. And so we can see that although he's asking God to do things, where it's within his ability to do so, he actually does them himself as well. And secondly, may I suggest that our giving to God is more about us growing in our own personal discipleship rather than God needing the value of our gift. When our giving is sacrificial, we are stepping out, learning to trust God and giving him the opportunity to let us see that he is a true and faithful friend. Now, I mentioned in an earlier talk that I heard someone say once that giving is not so much about God raising money, it's more about him raising children, and that's us. He wants us to take those first few steps, tiny at first, as we start to learn to trust him, but perhaps eventually developing into longer, confident strides as our trust in him develops. Giving is like worship. or praise. It draws us into God's presence, and we emerge from that place of sacrifice, knowing more clearly that God is God, and that we have chosen and are choosing to live our lives trusting in him. When St. Paul was organising his collection for the church in Jerusalem, which was experiencing famine, the implication from the text was that he intended to excuse the Macedonians from participating because he knew they were hard up and they couldn't afford to give. But the Macedonians insisted. Paul writes in 2 Corinthians, "For I testify that they gave as much as they were able, and even beyond their ability, entirely on their own. They urgently pleaded with us for the privilege of sharing in this service to the Lord's people." Well, what a testimony. Today, in this generosity week, without being prompted, entirely on our own, let's plead for the opportunity to contribute, or maybe to increase our financial contribution to the mission of our parish or benefice and our diocese. And in doing so, let's take a few small, simple steps of sacrifice that will draw us closer to God, the author and perfecter of our faith. Amen. Thank you once again for listening. I'll be back tomorrow to look at how we can respond to giving when times are tough, and I'll see you then. Thank you.